Oh, excuse me. That's what I think they are, yeah. I think that's exactly what they are.
That's what they look like.
Yeah.
Where you came in this morning is the staff entrance. So sorry about that. But last time when we were here, this was ruined because of the disastrous fire in 1974. And in 1996, we started a program of restoration. We found an engineer and an architect who said that they thought they would be able to re-roof the house. Now, our difficulty was that after more than 20 years as a ruin, the walls were no longer strong enough to support the weight of the roof. So we had to come up with a design whereby a structure was built inside the house, a steel structure, and then there was a lightweight metal deck roof was put on the top, and the walls were then tied back into that structure. So that's how come we were able to weatherproof the house and to ensure that it wouldn't deteriorate any further. So that was our first ambition, was to make sure that the house didn't deteriorate. And the columns or the arches that you see behind you, they are in the position of the original arches in the original house. Now, a lot of them would have been damaged over 20 years when it was a ruin, but they're in the exact positions. And above those arches, when we go upstairs to the saloon or ballroom, the columns are built on top of them, and that is the structure. And they again are in the exact position of the original columns in the original house. One of the only benefits of the fire in 1974 was it revealed the original castle that was built here in the 14th century. So it was a U-shaped castle. So that was one wall. There was a wall here and another wall here. And when we go up the stairs, you'll be able to see the original castle walls, which are really, really thick. And when Richard Castles came to design the present house, he incorporated the original castle in that design. So they filled in this courtyard, because this would have been a courtyard in the original castle, and created the entrance hall, and then the ballroom or saloon above. And of course, what they wanted to do was to create something that was really impressive. And I'm sure you know the story about George IV when he came to visit, and how he spent too long banqueting upstairs. And there was a special throne built for him because he was quite large, and unfortunately never made it to the falls, which was just as well, because the dam that had been built for his greater enjoyment would burst through, it washed away the whole platform. So we could have had a major impact on British history, but luckily for us, it didn't happen. So we might take a little walk upstairs and show you the ballroom.
Is that original structure?
Yeah, I think it is.
Jenny, I told you wrong about the throne.
Isn't it?
No, that would have come afterwards. So these walls here would have been our 18th century additions and modifications, but the original rubble stone walls would be the original castle. And after the fire, you could have stood where Alex is standing down there and looked straight up to the sky. This wasn't the place. There was nothing. It was literally just the walls that remained. So we were fortunate that we had quite good drawings and photographs, so we were able to put back in place everything in the exact location as it had been prior to the fire. So that would include this staircase, which we were able to find craftspeople to replicate the ironwork and put it back as it was. They were, yes. Actually, there's a story in relation to the fire because it happened on a November evening. And my grandparents had spent quite a lot of time restoring the house when they had purchased it, and the idea was that they were going to open it to the public the following summer. And they had a press reception to announce this, and a fire was lit in one of the rooms where a fire had not been lit for some time, and the chimney caught fire. And it was a very windy November night, and the chimney ignited in the middle of the night. And one of the questions that were asked was, well, it was in the middle of the night, was anybody killed? And when my grandparents were living here, my great-grandmother, my grandmother's mother, used to come and stay. And she stayed in a very top room, just under the copper dome, right up on the second floor. And she was quite elderly, so my grandfather rigged up an electric bell for her in her room, so that if she needed anything in the middle of the night, she could press the bell and somebody would come to her assistance. Now, the night of the fire, she wasn't staying here, she was in her own house. And in the middle of the night, the bell started to ring. And what had happened was the fire had burned through the cable and had caused the bell to ring, which woke everyone up. And they were saying, well, why is the bell ringing? Granny is not staying. And that alerted everybody in the house, and they were able to get out before the roof collapsed. And there was nobody killed. So only for that, there would have been a much sadder occasion the night of the fire. It was an accidental chimney fire. There was no malicious intent. It was just one of those really sad, unfortunate it was a voluntary fire brigade, so it was a question of trying to scrabble people together, and of course by the time they got here, because of the high winds, they had no hope in terms of battling the fire. It was so taken hold, and the whole roof was on fire at the time when they arrived, and then it collapsed, and then the next floor collapsed, and right down to the ground. So they have very quickly. They had already earlier yes. That would have been when they had the press reception, so that would be earlier in the day.
So one question.
Yes.
I read maybe the reason the IRA never burned down Powerscourt like that was because it ran the International Scouts Jamboree here every 4 years, and people came in from all over the world. Other people say the IRA wouldn't make it.
I have to confess, I'm not sure that was terribly high on the IRS budget. But I'm happy to say that the Scouts continue to camp here at Powerscourt. Every summer we have Scout troops that come not only from Ireland but from overseas, and they all camp down by the river. So it's great to have that tradition continued.
Okay. Yeah. That's all right. I'm not stopping fast enough.
Inside here. Yeah, but I think very, I know, but I think the thing is we were very fortunate to be able to find perhaps people who had the skills to be able to look at it. And again, the ceiling as well, we have photographs, we didn't see both, we were able to replicate it. If we would have put something here as well. This is a really smart place there, we weren't able to to the end. If we went to the farm. What did you have? But originally, he worked as a Oh, did you? Yes. Yeah, in this area, just before, that's right. See it, isn't it? And it's one room there, columns were granite that were hewn from the quarry and played green, and they were painted to look like marble. Maybe, yeah. So the platforms on the end were all the originals.
Isn't this wonderful?
Columns fell and
we still have them.
They're in pieces.
Yeah. But they were in pieces.
Yeah, I don't know why they was.
We'll put them back in the car. You have this one from here, so let's check
That's one of the way that's one.
Oh, I like this one.
Yeah, right.
This is the allowance in probably years of the chapter, so they don't have guns.
Actually, today might sit there. Yeah. A lot of days must be there. They must have weddings together.
Could everyone come? We're being addressed on the gardens by the Gardener General in Chief.
They know us now that we're not going to do anything to damage the estate with the
So the whole estate is 40, well the whole estate is about 900 acres. Just under 1,000 acres now. Originally it was 46,000. 46,000.
We'd say it doesn't necessarily own anything like it seems.
No, used to.
Oh.
Well, we didn't.
What about on the other side of the mountain? Is there land which was not owned by the person?
Well, see, that was the kind of, that was the sort of the boundary there where the Wicklow and the Dublin farms would have been. So actually, originally, this was, he was put in charge, he was Marshal of Ireland, Richard Wingfield originally. So, and this is why this site was sort of so important as well. We're so close to Dublin, so from a military point of view, this is really, really important as well. So you'd have a lot of the kind of the Wicklow clans coming down to raid and everything, and this would be the point of contact before they got to Dublin. But interestingly enough, I mean, you've probably heard everything on the audio guide. One of the most common questions asked here, as you're looking out, is people saying, well, why isn't the house in line with the mountain? And this is actually this is intentionally done. So the garden here, this is the Italian gardens. This is symmetrical. So basically everything on one side is copied on the other side. However, the Sugarloaf in the greater landscape is asymmetrical to the garden, and this is intentionally done. And this is some of the things that they did, and you would have seen it a lot with some of the gate work, some of the metal work in the gates. When they built a gate or something like that, they actually intentionally made mistakes. They put an imperfection in. And the idea behind that is that you can't make anything as perfect as God would make it. So that's why you make little, and that's why this was done as well. And it also, to emphasize the transition between the man-made garden, which is here, and how it gently transitions into the greater landscape. So that's sort of, a lot of people say, well, why wasn't the house just turned slightly? But this is to show that there's an interaction with the man-made garden and the greater landscape. Sometimes it's actually good to have imperfections. I kind of use that a lot in the gardens, that in order to get a perfection, you have to have an imperfection. So that's what it is here. These gardens, I think you'll hear in the audio guide, mainly by the 6th and 7th by count. So really they're my kind of gardening heroes with regards here. They did the majority of the tree planting, the majority of the kind of the hard landscaping, statue work, the gates. So it was really them that did the majority of the gardens and what you actually walked around today. Having said that, that's sort of about 150 years ago. So what I'm dealing with now is what they envisioned. This is, if they were alive today, they'd say that's what we planned, that's what we wanted to see. So my task now is to say, well, what is this place going to look like in 150 years' time? Also, my job is what it's going to look like tomorrow, the end of the summer, next year, but also a really key part, and Sarah would be the same as well, is, we've only been here a drop compared to what the Wingfields have. But however, it's still a start. So what I'm kind of dealing with now is a lot of the big trees, 150, 160, up to 200 years old, they're starting to senesce, they're starting to come to the end of their life. And what happens is, when trees and plants do that, they put out a final kind of burst over the last couple of years. So we get getting a lot of seed production on a lot of the conifers and stuff. But that's actually quite a key sign that they're actually coming to the end. So what I'll be doing over the next couple of years is actually doing quite a lot of collecting, quite a lot of seed collecting, and quite a lot of sort of rescuing plants that we have here, trying to grow on from some of the specimen plants, with the idea of possibly planting them back in, but also I now have room to maybe do something different as well. That was a big thing that I figured out with the Lord's Powerscourt, was that they didn't like to stand still, they liked to experiment. They didn't always get it right. I'm sure that there would have been different trees planted, maybe they didn't work. But that's kind of a big part of gardening, that I always say, if I plant 20 trees and one survives, that's a success. And I'd be happy with that. A lot of other people wouldn't, but that's what gardening is. It's a very patient kind of game. So what I'm going to be doing now is identifying what grows really well here, but also identifying what could grow well here in the next 100 years, 150 years, because this was their personal collection. They had an amazing collection in the house, but they also had an amazing collection in the gardens. And these were specimen trees. They actually travelled to different countries and saw what grew there and decided, I want to make that part of my collection. So that's kind of the plan here. The difficult thing is how do I see this in 100 years' time, 150 years' time? I'm never going to see it, but I have to try and plan towards that and kind of say, well, look, we'll do this kind of tree, we'll do this kind of tree here, we'll open up new areas here. So that's really, and the crucial thing is to try and keep it tied in with the greater landscape as well. As I was saying earlier, you know, it's a really tricky thing to do, but there has to be a definite difference between the man-made and the natural landscape, but it has to flow as well. So that's my challenge for the next 35 to 40 years, hopefully, if I'm still here. And then, you know, that's what we want to do. Is we want to do exactly what the Wingfields did. We want to leave something for the next generations, and that people will then, you know, get on board, and that actually this estate will just keep going and going. So that's the plan. We're at the very start of it, and you're kind of seeing it like this, but I'm sure in 150 years' time this is going to look very different.
Thank you. Interesting.
When George IV was here, before we nearly drowned him, he was shown this view and asked by his host for lunch, "What do you think of the view, Your Majesty?" And he said, "Absolutely lovely, except for that house there." And the chief guest beside him is the owner of that house. And he didn't know whether to speak as he put in the tower or etc. So I think he said nothing. And that was it.
So they planted trees in the way.
Yes, you can't see the house now, but it's covered by trees grown up.
Yeah, right. Charlie.
And I've been asked by Stephen, who's organised the tour, to give a vote of thanks. And I'd like to thank Alex and Sarah very, very much indeed for what they've shown us. Very special and very lovely. Thank you.